When we talk about entrepreneurship, it's a lonely place. It is a really lonely place. You have an idea, and I always think of this like bird in a nest sort of thing. You have this idea, it's like a little egg. And you've got this great egg, and you think it's the greatest egg on earth, and you're just going to sit on it. You love this egg, and you're just going to sit there, keep it warm, nurture it, don't let anybody near it, no weasels, no badgers. This is your egg. But it's lonely sitting there on your egg, and it's very lonely when you're trying to figure out where you're going to go with this. So with that loneliness comes a lot of different emotion. Fear and anxiety overlap. But it's more than that. It's that intolerance of the unknown. How well, and I would ask each of you to ask yourself, how well do you tolerate the unknown? How well do you tolerate the stuff that you can't control? And what can you do about that? People talk about fear of failure, and they talk about fear of success. I find that most fear, especially when we're talking about a business venture or any sort of endeavor of this sort, it's fear of failure. What are you afraid of? Are you afraid of failing? Are you afraid of the public embarrassment? By public, I mean anybody who knows what it is you're trying to do. Are you afraid of being humiliated in front of your family and friends? Are you afraid of your Aunt Bessie going, "I told you so, you just should have married a doctor"? What are you afraid of? Fear of success, you know, people often say, no, you're sabotaging yourself. It's fear of success. I don't find that. There's only two circumstances where I have found fear of success. One, and this is family of origin stuff, and that is when there is a successful, overwhelming parent, usually a narcissist, who is very, very invested in their arrogance, in their superior position. For some offspring of that type of person, it's simply not safe to succeed. Not safe at all, because now you're challenging the lion, and there's huge fallout. And what's the biggest thing that any kid is afraid of? Losing love. That, and the other place where I have found real fear of success is someone who comes from a home where there's either abuse or criticism, where you try to be invisible, and there's lots of dynamics that lead up to that. And if you grew up in a household like that where it's just best to really be invisible, because if the spotlight is on you, then the negativity can come at you. How dependent are you on feedback from others? And this is a big one. How much, segueing to, do you trust yourself? Do you know what it is that you have to do to remind yourself of who you are? Do you know how to reestablish yourself in your own mind? A lot of people don't. Sometimes I have people go back and read their own resume because they forget. They forget who they are. They forget what they've done. They forget where they've been. They forget what they're capable of. Go look at your GRE score. Go do something that reminds you that, yeah, you know what you're doing. Are you a people pleaser? What's a people pleaser? What does that mean? That means, how are you at saying no to people? How are you at dealing with people and telling them something that will disappoint them? How often do you subsume your own desires, your own best interest for other people? Once again, this is something we're programmed to do, aren't we? We tend to not want to be the bad guy. We all want to be the nice person. We all want people to like us. We all do our business in varying degrees based on that, triggered by that. I can't emphasize enough how important it is for each one of you in your venture to have a support system that is supporting you unconditionally. Keep going, you can do it. But you want someone that'll give you feedback but encourage you to do and follow what's in your heart, not the shoulds, not what you should be doing, not what somebody else thinks, not how everybody else does it. And it's really hard, and you have to kind of seek those people out. That's also kind of a good truism for life. You always want the people that have your back. You want the people that will support you, that hear you, that get it. All you need is really one, but it's nice if you have a whole group. And that something where you scratch my back, I scratch yours, even better. What's one of the biggest failures people fear? They fear making a mistake. Everybody here who's a first child or the good kid or the AA driver overachiever, and that's probably everybody in this room, we really fear making mistakes. We don't like to do that. We don't tolerate it in ourselves. We're not very good in it with other people as well. But that mistake thing, and we operate with a fear of making a mistake. When I'm working with clients, I like to tell them that I don't believe in mistakes, and I don't. I don't think that there's really any such thing as a mistake, not a life mistake. Everybody wakes up and makes decisions based on the information they have that day, what they need that day, and what they're capable of that day. That changes from day to day. You get more information, you have different needs, and you have different capabilities, which is why 20/20 hindsight is so not an interesting conversation. Thomas Edison gave it 2,000 tries before he actually invented a working light bulb. And someone commented that how did he endure that many failures? And he said, I didn't fail. He said, I discovered 1,999 ways to not make a light bulb. So a lot of it is about perspective. It's about what you take away from any experience. And that's a huge part of dealing with any setback. It's just a learning experience. And if you can do that, that's going to save you a lot of grief, a lot of anxiety, and it will help to keep down the fear. In Texas, back in the day of the oil boom, you weren't really considered a millionaire until you had made $1 million and lost $1 million and made $1 million again. Because if you hadn't ever failed, you were not flying close enough to the envelope. So when I talk about failure, I'd like you to think about what is your definition of failure and how can you write it so that you're not always on the edge of disaster, but you're always on the edge of learning something. Get a takeaway from every single thing you do, always. Because otherwise you've got the emotional upheaval of I'm a failure, I'm anxious, I'm afraid I've made a mistake, and you catastrophize, right? And what happens then? You drive yourself right into a cul-de-sac and you just go in a little circle. Oh my gosh, and I'm afraid to get out because I might make another mistake. We just don't want that for you. Amazingly, every theorist agrees on this, and theorists, as you know, never agree on anything. But they all agree that who we are as we sit here today is 50% nature, 50% nurture. 50% is just flat hardwiring, and the other 50% is the situation we were born in, the situation we grew up in, and the lessons that life taught us throughout the course of our lives. That's profoundly individual. And how each and every one of us reacts to certain sets of situations is based on that 50% nature. You can have 8 kids that grow up in the same household with the same forces beating in on them, and they will have 8 different outcomes and 8 entirely different experiences. In a better world, we would all have an ideal, profoundly ideal upbringing, being raised by profoundly ideal parents and mentors. Not always the case. So everybody develops a different set of protective mechanisms, which work at the time, but may not be so attractive once you take them on the road. The things that kept you safe, that kept you emotionally safe, that helped you to deal with whatever situations you were faced with, they may be a little overdeveloped, and when they're not necessary anymore, it may just be a little too heavy and it may weigh you down. Parents do that to their kids without meaning to do anything but just prepare them for life. You know, okay, I just want to teach you to be careful. I just want to teach you to be careful. I just want to teach you to be careful. Well, depending on who you are, how absorbent you are, and how profound those messages are over and over and over again, that really affects what you're capable of doing. And it's very limiting. I'm not a big believer in blame either. I just don't. It's not like you don't need to pound a pillow or, yell at a chair or anything. It's like, no, it's just information. It's information that you need. Okay, if somebody put these negative beliefs into your head, they had some damage from somewhere. So it's just information as to why you're suffering from what you're suffering with. Why don't you think about creating a different message to counteract that? Why don't you think about something that says, no, I'm smart. I know what I'm doing, and I can move forward. I can do that. I disagree with that message. I'm going to replay my own message. What usually happens, and this sounds so simplistic, this is one of the hardest things. This is like trying to bench press a Buick mentally. It's really hard. What you have to do is when these negative messages, your own particular chain starts, you then have to go, stop. It's called thought stopping. Clever name, right? No, I'm not playing that message. I'm playing the other message. I don't need to hear this negativity about myself. Let me play the other message. With practice, you eventually back it up to where that song's just going to start. And you can go, no, other song. And interestingly, the mind is a powerful thing. After 21 days, you make a new habit. And once again, something else that theorists agree on. After 21 days, you can make a new habit. And that habit can be any number of things. It can be going to the gym. It can be putting your left sock on first. It can be the way you think. Now, if you get sick or you get really stressed, we tend to go back to the old way. But you can usually get that river back on track. You can do that. It's really powerful. You just need to know what it is that you need to stop doing and have a real specific idea of how you want to do things differently. Shoulds are something that show up a lot. In 12-step programs, they warn you against shoulding all over yourself. Shoulds, any thought that has should in it, tends to be you measuring yourself with someone else's yardstick. Oh my gosh, I should work another 5 hours. Oh my goodness, I really should like broccoli. Shoulds are there, but they're imposing someone else's values on yourself, as opposed to going, I don't like broccoli. I don't want to work another 3 or 4 hours. And the shoulds can be quite devastating when you're working on your own business, your own endeavor. So I would encourage you to pay attention to yourself. What are your shoulds? What shoulds are you operating from? Because they're really sneaky and they're really powerful. Why? I'd asked before, are you interested in pursuing the endeavor you're pursuing? People have the reasons they think they have, and then they have the reasons that are really driving them. Sometimes it's a lot deeper than you think. Why? Because my grandfather was an immigrant, and he rose up from nothing, and my father followed in his footsteps, and I need to do that too, or I'm a failure in the line. Maybe, maybe not. But recognizing why, because you need to recognize what's driving you, and you need to recognize what you need out of this endeavor. What do you need? Do you need to be financially independent? Do you need to see your name in print? Do you need to be independent of very controlling sources? Do you need to make your own mark? Some people see an opportunity and they say, wow, this will be great. Some people, they see a need. They say, I can fill this need. Some people just go, yeah, no, I don't want to be a CPA. It's real simple. Okay, that too. But back to what makes an entrepreneur. I was thinking about what are some of the commonalities that I am aware of. And so I started listing in my mind, actually made a list of the people I've worked with from different backgrounds who are entrepreneurs. And you know, two things that I found that you won't find in any writing anywhere, because all of the lists I found had nothing to do with what we're talking about tonight, which tells me I need to publish, but I'm too lazy. Two things. One, I found significant adult ADD. Now, that doesn't mean everybody who wants to be an entrepreneur is adult ADD, but I'm talking more than 2 standard deviations here of clinical significance. I found a lot of undiagnosed but long suspected adult ADD, where people will go, yeah, I've always been told that. Have you seen my keys? I do. I have an entrepreneur who makes it a practice to have at least 6 sets of keys on his person at all times, because he's counted on to lose 5 of them. He's been told he has ADD, but you know what? It works for him. It works for him. He doesn't want to be diagnosed, and he doesn't want to be treated. Why? Because it works for him. He has myriad interests, and he needs a lot of things to keep him interested. What is the other complaint with these ADD folks? It works really well, but you know what? It's really inconvenient. Why? Because they don't tend to dot the I's and cross the T's real well. They're big picture people, but they're not good at the details. The other thing I found, which surprised me, once again, more than 2 standard deviations, I found an inordinate number of the people I've worked with who had either lost their mothers to an untimely, very early death, had been separated from them by geography as children, or had mothers who were emotionally completely and totally unavailable. Now, what does that mean to you? Nothing. But my point is that there are certain things that you're not even necessarily aware of that will drive you forward. And those were 2 things, those were 2 commonalities that I was like, wow. My theory as to why that's significant, because they didn't have a guiding force, they didn't have someone there, and they had to count on themselves at a very, very early age. That thing, that says you should do it all yourself, you've got to do it all, you've got to do it all. You haven't turned a profit, you can't afford to hire somebody. You've got to do it all, you've got to do it all. You should never ask anybody to do something that you wouldn't do. Not so much. Are you good at every single thing in the world? Good to know. Remember that, because you should never ask yourself to do every single thing in the world. I don't care what it is. I don't care what it is. And some things you're going to be really good at, and some things you're going to suck at. It's also a technical term. I would encourage you to really focus on your strengths, embrace those strengths, remind yourself of those strengths, and give yourself permission to be really lousy at some things because you don't like doing them. If you don't like doing them, you're not going to do them well. I don't care what. And delegate that to someone else. Give yourself permission to not be all things to all people. That thing can play in your mind, that thing that says, you should do this yourself. No, this is important. I've got to do this myself. I really need to do this myself. I should be doing that myself. I need to do that myself. Yeah. Work first. Pleasure later. We're taught that. We're socialized. You know, that's what you do. You do your homework first, then you can watch TV. Well, when it's a nonstop bird that needs to be fed, we don't ever stop. We don't ever play. We don't ever take care of ourselves. We're programmed to finish the work. And in a startup company, there is no finish. It's like a newborn child. You're always doing something. And you have to be able to figure out how to give yourself the day off, the hour off, the time off that you need. Because it's just like on the airplane, you know, that little mask drops down. If you don't put your oxygen mask on first, it's nobody else's job to make sure that you're breathing. You've got to be able to balance work, love, and play. And the startup business person tends to not do that. They tend to work 27 hours a day, 7 days a week. And there are a couple of dangers involved in that. One is I should do more, I can't stop until I have turned a profit. You know what? If you drop dead and they find your little bones rotting in your warehouse because you couldn't go home or you couldn't go to the gym or you forgot to eat for 3 days or you haven't slept in 9, that's not going to help anybody. You're going to have to be your own, taskmaster and make sure that you balance yourself. You're not as productive on hour 23 as you are on hour 8. After a while, that diminishing returns is pretty profound. The other danger is that thing where you start the business and maybe you have some small victories. Okay, well, now I got to do more. Okay, well, now I got to do a little more. Now I got to do a little more. There's an addictive quality to working within your business. If you get a thrill, if you get the adrenaline rush, flying the edge, you'll tend to fly the edge a little more, work a little harder, take a few more risks. And you've got to be careful about that. You might as well just go to Las Vegas and put it all on the hardway 8. A business can trigger a gambler's instinct and you lose your perspective because a little more. If I work a little harder, a little bit more. I got 3 orders. If I stay here 28 hours, I'll get 5 orders. You've got to be careful about that. Where's the finish line? Do you know? For those of you who have created a business, you've now given birth, you fed the bird, it flies, it's great. When's it enough? Some people, when they have made it, successful business, they've created this, now the business is self-sustaining, they don't know what to do and they think they're just supposed to do it again because they don't know what else to do. What do you do? I'm an entrepreneur. What does that mean? Well, I create these successful businesses. Okay, well, this one's successful and it's self-sustaining. I guess I better go make another one. Some people find that all of that work and all of that effort and all of that stuff didn't fill the need that they were hoping it would. Some people are just tired. They did it, made it, great, done, thank you. And they go off, like my other client, and, learn to surf. Think about your exit strategy. What do you want to do after? Do it some more? Do charitable works? Be on the boards of some companies and help to nurture others? Mentor? But know when enough is enough. That way you know when to stop.
MyLocationScout.com. List it, rent it, film it.
That's a wrap.